Friends. Friends of mine. Here we are. At the, again, fortuitously, a storm. Rain clouds bellow. Thunder sounded as I was about to make this live. But I'll quickly check to make sure it is in fact live. But here we are at Balmoral Beach, of course named in the manner from which this founded country came, which is, of course, from England. Old Blighty. Old England, called Balmoral after its namesake, back in the old country. Old Bean, what a beautiful place. I guess you could call that Art Deco period here. As you can see, the kinds of things what do you call those pavilions they build at beaches? But we are in Sydney Harbour for our walk around Middlehead, it's called, where we walk past the Navy. The Admiralty has, in a lot of these head areas since World War II, there is, someone's doing wedding photos down there, as you can probably see. But the Navy, the Army, all had encampments around here on North Head, South Head. These are the heads of the harbour. And so, as you would imagine, there's gun emplacements on them, or were. And so still there is a remnant of that. Still it remains. Over here is where the Navy still has a encampment. I think there's still, over all of them, there's still some sort of presence. But a lot of it, I think back in the day, the Middlehead used to have a golf course on it, which has been reclaimed for... There's a big thing in Australia with the Sydney Harbour reclamation of the coastal area for the general populace, quite rightly, to be able to do the kind of thing we're going to do today as we walk around the beach and around the entire head, ending up in this secure, secluded bay, which used to be Navy only. And we can have a nice something to eat there. But today, we're talking about, well, the mystery of Golgotha. The complete changing, I won't get too close to the end now, the complete changing of the cosmos. The scope and scale of the full and complete resurrection of the risen one. Well, of course, as it relates to our initiation, is what has occurred in the cosmos, so too must it occur for the individual. What has been done for collective sin, done for primordial sin in the macrocosm, must, well, allows for now, fundamentally, because he resurrected, he is now the initiator, the master, the Lord, as a true fact, a cosmic fact. The risen one now can guide you directly. That's what is all this discernment we talk about? What is all this? That's what mysticism is, mystic experience. This is what we're all supposed to aspire to this, to be guided by divine will. This was not possible in pagan times. We were cut off from the sources of eternal life. They were only interacting with the memory, not the living memory. It still had spiritual force, but you see over time the slow decay of a Luciferic, original pagan, primitive spiritual experience to a satanic one, where we end up where we are now with the intellect as it is. Decayed, devaluated, without a way, as a wanderer, a spiritual wanderer across the planet as the final stage of the old Adam. Still, but everything has changed. Everything's changed. The middle of time is established. The end is secure. Thank God for that you're not born in pagan times. What did the Greeks say in pagan times? The Greeks said, better to be a beggar here than a king in the land of shades. And what does that mean? It means, friends, hell. It means before the incarnation, death was death. There was no resting in peace or resting in the Father. It was a dissolution into general cosmic wisdom. There's no resurrection. There's no afterlife. Just almost like it says. That's why the Greeks said that. That's why they loved the body. The beauty of the body and the spiritual that was there in life. And St. Paul spoke to them about that, telling them, now it's changed, friends. Your love for beauty and your statues now, due to the resurrection body, which is connected and tied up with the will. Now you will live and can rest in the Father and live forever. And a way of understanding this is, this is what perennialism doesn't understand. It's not the same thing. The cosmos completely changed. We're dealing now with a cosmos that began as cosmic wisdom in this fundamental change to a cosmos of love or willed good. So of course the reason why we see things are, now begins from the resurrection, now begins from this true reconnection, healing, the complete conversion of it all from the cosmos of wisdom to the cosmos of love. And the difference is, of course, this yearning out of nature that appears to be neutral, that's the cosmos of wisdom. We still live in the cosmos of wisdom in the sense that we each individually have to do this so the complete transformation occurs collectively with us, because it's tied up with our individual sin now. So the whole thing, because fundamentally now love's here, it's reconnected, it's possible. But of course, the remnants of Satan and Lucifer, well, they're still here. Satan and Lucifer still exist. They have to be overcome. But that is now, it's not a matter of the hope of overcoming. It's a matter now of it will be, because Christ now is incarnated. It will be matter of time. And to everyone, until it's all converted from this neutral to this love inflowing from the eternal through us into nature, transforming it. These are long times, so don't be too concerned. Yes, there's dark times and dark things with AI, but this is not a singularity. It's an accelerated towards death. Sorry about that. And I apologise, we're starting a bit late today, but we'll go as long as we can. We should still be able to get 5 hours in, but I think we might even get a sunset if the clouds clear up. We're going to walk along here. And so death, that's what that is, accelerated death. As more and more people resurrect the different parts of their being, the unconscious, the vital unconscious, the psychological unconscious, or you could call that body, right? Because what is body but a memory? Memory is like a body in the sense that, not physical body, but it's a body. Like this is a solid body we're walking on right now. You can think about it like that. And so I mean, we'll get to the full resurrection later, or talking about what happened, but we can talk about now. I'll check the chats first, actually. But we can talk about now, well, how does it relate? Because we have to go through this process and identify with. Hello, Chris Doak says hello, and Hail Mary full of grace says hello. Hello, friends. And so, what are you saying? Yeah, the process must occur for us. Just as Christ did in his perfect way, so too must we. I might quickly go to the bathroom here, so I'm just going to disconnect this briefly. It's not an ideal time, but it's the only time, and there's one right here. And so, we should be back. Should be coming through to you pretty crystal clear. Maybe a bit less moody as well, because I turned the color grade down a little bit. Looks like we're good, we're back. Should be able to see my face a little better. Okay. And so, fundamentally, the mystery of Golgotha. We've talked about before the miracles, the Beatitudes, and they are all prefigured, or prefigurations of they all would in a sense be not as important without the mystery of Golgotha. They are properly made what they are with that. Its seed is in them. But if they were just a miracle on its own, that's different. It's all seedings of this cosmological, complete transformation. This is not just a resurrection of a son of man or the son of man. It's a resurrection of the Son of God at the same time. A way of thinking about it. And you can see this in the symbolism of the resurrection. To just get an idea of the utter scope of the resurrection is, and orthodoxy understands this. Some other theologies try to postulate that, oh no, it's not the Son of God that dies. It's just the Son of Man part that dies. One of the natures that dies. No. Because if you think about it, the Son of God, begotten of the Father, begotten, right? The symbolism of the eclipse during the crucifixion, when he dies. He had to be the Son of God and the Son of Man both die, right? It's hypostasis. But what this means is, think about the utter elation of the whole cosmos, that the Logos, who is the angelois and the hierarchies, he is their breath. But when he descends to hell, he is, their breath is gone. They're breathless in awaiting to see what happens, because he's cut off. God fully experiences human death, because before that, it's a known thing, but it's not a thing that God has gone through, to be cut off from the Father. That's what the eclipse speaks to. Right? So it's a way of thinking about it. And so you've got two poles, the pole of death and the pole of life. The pole of life goes to death, to completely conquer hell, this place that the Greeks talk of, right? Better to be a beggar in the alive place than a king in the land of shades. That's what happened when you died then, until, think about it, it's like a seed, because Christ has conquered death and resurrected from there. His seed from then on is always planted in hell, always planted in the place that is furthest removed from the good and him, which is death, which is where Satan is. Forever, since that middle of time. So no matter how, on a personal level, no matter how bad things get for you, he's always there now as the initiator, right? This has ramifications for mystical union, initiation, this thing that was not possible before. Whatever it was experienced by pagan initiates, it's only the memory, not the logos, only the interaction with the memory, because cosmic memory, as Plato talks about, is remembered, right? Disclosed and remembered. It's cut off after the fall. It's not living memory. After that, it becomes, yes, it has power. It was a dying though, right? There's this, think about it like an arc. There's a dying from the first beginning, you could call it, the Luciferic beginning. There's this dying of spiritual experience. It begins with sort of like primitive clairvoyance, primitive, what some people call atavistic clairvoyance, which just means primitive. And it dies off and turns into the Satanism you see now, so rigid propositions, right? That's the scale. It moves from that to dead intellect. And so all the people that were involved in initiation or whatnot, in pagans, whatever the pagan initiates, they're only ever penetrating into, and under their own steam, I might add, right? Under having 12 other people helping them. They are going through a kind of pattern that's similar to resurrection, but it's not a connection to emanation, true outside, right? Because it's not possible until Christ incarnates for that to happen. So at most they are, or were, interacting with Sophia, interacting with memory. But only now, since the mystery of Golgotha, is the opposite pole now penetrated by the eternal life emanation from outside, the Holy Spirit. What does that mean? It means the Master now, the Lord, who was, of course, preparing his separated people. Why else separate a people off unless those waters are corrupted, right? The pagan waters, all the perennialism, they're leftover corrupted waters. You separate off a people so you can begin setting up the prophetic ingressions that you're sending, as I've talked about in lectures before, to prepare the body, to prepare for the incarnation, which is not just a incarnation of God. Like I said, it's the complete resurrection of the cosmos. What does that mean? It means there's now a grace, but also fundamentally that Sabbath day is restored, that the miraculous intervention is restored. The way to the Father, the Godhead, is possible now. You don't go to rest in the bosom of Abraham, which is an ancestor, which comes from the blood, right? A folk, kind of folk ungloy. You, now, Christ, the risen one, is the only begotten Son of God who helps everyone in a million different ways until we come to closer union with him through the tradition, through poverty, obedience, chastity, through purification, illumination, union, which is initiation, right? And what is that? Initiation is crucifixion. That's one of the stages of the Passion, crucifixion. It is the concentrating of soul forces, the concentrating of and purification of, while you're doing your practices of concentration without effort in prayer, which I can't stress enough, that this is the key and core practice that brings about a closer union. So it's not this top-down duty trying to enact the behaviors under your own forces, or with only, think about it like having the first wine only, trying to enact the behaviors that we're supposed to enact that are laid down in the Bible. Well, no, it's, you do that, but Christ, who's now here and available, where's the stairway? I think it's this way. He's the initiator. He shows one how, and comes to collaborate. Given we work with the tradition and that's been laid down with the practices such as the Jesus prayer and concentration without effort, I just want to stress again how important that is. Like, we have to be doing this. Because what it leads to is, well, think about it. The Lord says his yoke is easy. My yoke's easy, but it seems very hard, right? It seems very hard sometimes. It's very hard. Well, the more you do the purification practice, the concentration without effort in prayer, the more you do that, where's that damn stairway? It must be this way. The more you do that, you know how Plato talks about, or it's talked about, the golden mean. How do you do these things? How do you bring about justice? How do you bring about sophism, this balance, this harmony? Well, for him, they're trying to do it sort of, again, it's sort of like top down, isn't it? Where does the guidance come from to find the moderation? You don't do it with numbers, you don't do it with calculation. Well, of course, after pagan times, what you realize is, again, they're operating off the memory, right? Even if it's a memory that has power and was connected to a spiritual experience, you can see in its decay, like I said, that it's a memory. It becomes living remembrance with the true tradition restored through the incarnation. But anyway, the point is, Christ is the golden mean. He is the golden mean, the being, personal being. And that's why his yoke is easy. Think about it. He knows all your forces, he knows all your sins, he knows all you're capable of, ultimately. He knows how to lead you up in moderation very carefully. Once you can get to the stage where you can actually discern divine will and discern and ask questions and then follow the intuition, and you're getting used to doing that, as some of the people in the fellowship are now starting to do, which is great, incredibly great. The whole point of everything we've been doing, so the Lord can guide people as it's supposed to be, as books like Unseen Warfare talk about. And so he is the golden mean, or else I don't think people would be that familiar with his yoke being that easy. But it is, it's full of life. It's not this severe, it's a slow resurrection. It's not this severe asceticism where it denies life. Christianity has nothing to learn from any type of vitalism. No, you need him to resurrect your dying vital forces that you try to soup up with amphetamines and soup up with supplements and soup up with testosterone. You need him. He doesn't need you. I mean, that vitalism is coming from a broad way, and you're sapped. Your strength is actually sapped by your wounds, by your sins, and haunt you. Or you try bring about a kind of hegemonic peace by trying to achieve victories where you can say, look, I'm a celebrity now. All those people that harmed me and were bullied me, ha ha ha. That gives you peace because you've overcome them by being someone high and mighty in society, right? That's kind of a will to power way of achieving some sort of hegemonic peace over the demons. And so he is the golden mean. But to get there, to get to this life, you have to bow what you were first. You've got to bow your low goals, low will to power, low desire. You have to be willing to have your foot washed. What's the mode of foot washing? Well, you bow your head to what's, it's the opposite of enthronement. You bow to those who are above. You have devotion and reverence. But the mode of the hierarchies above you is what's called will to service. And you are also to have the same mode as heaven has. This is the first stage of the passion, it's foot washing. That can begin simply by a will to service of divine will. That naturally though, you might struggle at first too. Like I said, you don't have to go and work in soup kitchens, right? But you can begin with simply serving and looking for divine will, healing, but also just having in the back of the mind that you're willing to help. I mean, mainly the thing that people really need help with is initiation, is access to this. That's what people really need. But that's the hardest thing, is that when you start to truly experience the phenomenology of mysticism, the miraculous facts of Christ's resurrection of your inner life and presencing and showing himself to you in a million different ways, obviously, eventually, this is military on the left-hand side, obviously, of course, like how do you, it doesn't mean that you're just able to convince an atheist family, hey look, by the way, we're mystics, by the way, you can have this proof for yourself if you just put this time in, right? There's so much, I mean, that's why, you know, apologetics is a very difficult thing, bringing people in. But, you know, the first part is really the most important, though, because we all are always on this path. Do not stray from the path. Stay on the path. Though the Lord will save you, it doesn't end to the end of your life, right? The forces, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, but you stay on the path. You stay on the path. There are different levels of union, different levels of crucifixion. Even concentration without effort in the morning is a minor crucifixion. In a small way, it's the concentration of your soul forces, and your feet are being washed. But you do have to imitate the Christ in initiation, in the depth practices. It is an imitation of him. And that's why it really helps to contemplate the stages of the Passion. I do that actually every day. You don't necessarily have to do that, and just little by little you learn a bit more. Little things come to you. Especially getting a sense of the true scale and the true stakes, but also the true it will be now. Thank God that you're not born in pagan times. Thank God. Thank God, I tell you, you should. Because now it's assured. And it's not some abstract afterlife thing that I'll go to heaven after life and have 66 versions. Lol. Shouldn't be, it's a bit dismissive, but I mean, it's true. It's true, right? There's only one religion. It's now. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. You just have to deal with your individual corruption and sin. The collective has been dealt with by Christ. Now he's available to help you with grace. He's available to help you with grace. And so that is a key cosmic transformation from what pagan initiates were up to. You know, it's nothing's under your own steam, it's collaborative. And it actually reaches to emanation through him. Remember what he says? Those that came before me are thieves and robbers. What are they thieving and robbing? They're not robbing from emanation. The Lord doesn't let people go, it wasn't even possible. They're thieving and robbing from you. They're thieving and robbing from the higher human being, the deeper levels of being that aren't ultimately emanation. And that's sort of why it's tied up with the sheep and coming in the door through him. It couldn't be done there. Now, people try to do the same thing as the pagans did, and that's attempting to reach before him as if you're a master and an initiator, when there's only one, the only begotten Son who incarnated. When you do that, you end up in the false spiritual experience of Luciferic, where it's light, but no truth, or in a kind of cynical, satanic knowledge of the raw facts without any, the raw cosmic wisdom without any life, because it's not true without life and the way, without the good and the beautiful. And that's the way of Western will to power, black occultism, it's the dead, lifeless cosmos, but the spirit of it is the cynical knowledge without a moral. It's like a cosmos that's not moral, that's just fighting demons, that sort of thing. The same thing that accelerationists are tied up with black occultism. That's what it is. And so, here we are. Now, where do we go? Oh, sorry, yep. We are, okay. Just figuring out where we're going to go. We're here. I think we'll just come down here, end up in this Chowder Bay, which is that beautiful cove we were talking about. I think there's a nice aristocratic looking house here. Aristocratic looking house here. Yeah, we might do right. I think I've been in this area before, but it's more like craggy cliffs. We don't really necessarily want to see that. Well, we will see some of it, but... Here we are. What are we saying? How you going? Here it is. Wow, it almost looks like a out of focusness there where the rain is, like a lens is made manly, which is over here, out of focus. That's strange, like heat is rising off somewhere, even though it's not. Yeah, there's lots of incredible headland around here. We did a stream over there in North Head, and the stream last week was more to the left over here. And a few months or 2 months back, we did a stream over there in Vaucluse. Viewing some of these mansions. It was raining then too. And so what were we saying? Let me just check the chats. Say hello. Chris Doak says, you're back. Yes, we are. Some chap talking about his wife. I don't know what you were talking about there. No, it's not easy. Life's not easy. Doesn't seem relevant to what we're talking about. And so let's continue. Hope you've had a decent look at this area. It's a shame the sun's not out, but there's a murky... I like the murky sometimes. Maybe that's some of my Scottish descent, along with my Anglo descent, but probably more Scottish. Anyway. And so, fundamental change in the cosmos. What was memory and the decaying spiritual experience. Spiritual, of kind of a also subject and object connected, and a sort of nature mysticism. What was that? If you go far enough back, there was no religion because they were just seeing it, right? Again, this was the Lucifer, you could call it the Lucifer. It's the Lucifer spiritual experience. And you get a sense of this too when I think a Gnostic, and look, I'm just playing with their quote here. When they say Christ is the true Lucifer, let's flip that on its head. Well, hang on, what's Lucifer? The false Christ. And what's Christ? The Word, isn't he? The Word and many other things. The life, only begotten Son, kind of false Son, right? And that's what Zarathustra, that's what all these pagans are looking up and seeing. War is the father of all false logos, right? Hello. And they learned things about when they're philosophizing about the logos, like Plato and the philosophers. Again, it's about whether it's before the incarnation or not. Anything after the incarnation, everything changes, right? But when we're talking before that, it's all memory. Or later, you have with the Gnostics, right? This is a sort of holdover from that primitive Luciferic clairvoyance, that first beginning, which is from the fall, cut off from providence and remembrance and the eternally true eternal moment, the true eternal present, who is actually Christ at the point of his sending to us, where temporality meets the true eternal. So they just didn't have access then. They had the memory, because memory remains. The planet, the facticity that we live in has a memory, and that doesn't go away. And so living off the memory of it, right? Whilst a preparation to redeem it all and the issue. Lucifer is the false Christ. From their quote, Christ is the true Lucifer, right? That gives us a sense of him being this false logos that everyone was sort of stuck in. But now we are still, the waters below the firmament are mixed. We're tainted with that, because we all have to deal with our personal sin that we are born into and live into. The macrocosmic is solved though. But how incredible needs to be understood, how incredible it is that understanding but the only begotten Son of God and the Son of Man, hypostasis, died, cut off. He knows ultimately death and he's God. It's not just the Son of Man nature part that, no. I think there are some sects that believe that. No. God knows what it is to die. God has seeded his life in hell. All those people that dissolved into hell before he redeemed now also have a pathway to true heaven. All have a pathway. So let me look at the map here. Bit of rain. Okay, yeah, I think we'll come out. Oh no, the pathway does seem to cross over to... Okay, we'll do that. Go back to the pathway we were on. Yes. And so that what has just been, of course we can only go into a certain amount of detail as we're walking and talking, live. But this gives you a sense, and I'm going to do a lecture on this coming up in the next few weeks on the resurrection, to give people an idea of a more esoteric Christian understanding, so they can see that perennialism is wrong. And that there is no ecumenism with other only if they're accepting Christ, right? Only if they're recognizing that what I've just said is there. Because remember, since the incarnation, he is doing things with those people and what they're up to. He is appearing to Muslims in their dreams, because the Master's now here. So everything changes after that. What we're talking about is before, so we can understand that going back to this old way is a kind of, you end up in a kind of blood obsession, because the sort of, in paganism, the sort of blood forces that are tied up with vitality then, you're tied up with fallen hierarchies that were involved in all the hyper agents that were these gods that make up the language too, right? It's the language it is spiritual, but it's, like I said, it's memory. It's not the eternal, it's not emanation. It's fallen. And so that was what was operating with their spiritual experience. But you can see there's still patterns in those different mythoses of what's ultimately true. And also what's going to happen too. But there are errors with some people when they've talked about this in a perennialist-like fashion. Some Christians have talked about it. That the highest pagan, like Plato, the highest pagans, they're dealing with Sophia, if they're speaking, if someone speaks to them. They're dealing with Sophia, who is a very real, of course, Mary Sophia, virginal nature, a very real being. But that's also a long story as well, but not the authentic Logos, not Christ, the only begotten Son of God. Because the preparation, there's so many reasons why, but it has to be, of course, unpacked. But let's go back to the subject of, and yes, we always seem to get done by rain, but at least that gives us some, well, we're always looking for a bit of solitude, aren't we? But where were we? We were on the foot washing. And this is where we're getting out of these modes of pagan spirituality. We see always a stark dichotomy between us and them, in the sense of how the hierarchies act, so too do we to act. They operate in either it's the enthronement or the wings of the bat, where it's an attempt at bottom-up bootstrapping via the will to power to achieve earthly means from the subterranean, from the subconscious, not the unconscious, this sort of bestial instincts. Or it's the Eastern, it's the serpent fleeing upward. And what does the serpent, this is related to the foot washing part of the mystery of Golgotha and initiation. What is the serpent? The fleeing serpent with its wings, what's it not doing? It's under its own force. It's not, or even the wings of Icarus, right? It's made by Icarus under his own force. He's not bowing, is he? He's not lowering himself like a foot washer does. Likewise with a throne, you're enthroning yourself as a revolution. You're not lowering who you were to previously. I mean, this is the whole thing of Christianity, right? Or of the fact of Christ, the only begotten Son of God, the one religion, the one true truth of reality, is fundamentally a baptism that comes from a poverty of spirit. Why was poverty of spirit necessary? Because these waters, like we've been talking about, from the degraded spiritual experience from the fall of, they were here in temporality, they still hang around because of individual sin, and we all need to collectively deal with it. We all need to, as each individual, have to do this. It's our meaning of life, theosis. We all individually have to return to the Father in free love, because he's the God of love, because it's moving from the cosmos of a sort of dead wisdom to the cosmos of love, full of life. Truth is not proper truth, is not truth without way and the life, ultimately. And well, not only are you bowing to, I don't know what's up here, I'll keep looking. Not only are you bowing, but you're also helping those other people. It has to be a mode of your understanding that it's not just spiritual experience for you, like the East and the deep practices of depersonalization where you abandon conscience. It's also, we must remember too, right, that Christ is the master of death. Not just a re-enlivening, some avatar who comes to re-enliven whatever the historical good is, which is really, it's based on a Lucifer gnosis, right, from the fall. A historical good based on an individual people. Christ came and transformed the cosmos of what is good from outside, because it was, of course, corrupted from the beginning because of the fall. So he comes to completely transform, not to restore or liberate, to heal and completely transform, which is completely new in spiritual history. You only have to look at it to know that. And so that mode of service, firstly to the divine, but then through his transformation of you, again, it helps, like we mentioned earlier, to have him, you start really with a lot of time, really we should be focused on your transformation to begin with, your practice, because you've got to realign and your life has to be resurrected. That means, because you're not exactly fit yet in your unconscious to go and, because you want Christ to live in you, because he transforms your good and what naturally you are impelled from his living impulses and being to want to do the things that you might be trying to do through duty if you did it otherwise. So it's certainly good to focus on the concentration without effort practices to begin with, certainly. Because his yoke is easy. You want to have a closer and closer union with him, first service of him, and naturally through that he will and does lead you to, and part of the practice is of course forgiveness, because what is forgiveness other than asking the Lord to bless other people? It's a very simple way you can do it. Prayers almost matter more in many ways, because anyone can sort of do an action, but prayer, but it's a good way to begin. And then later, of course, he is the golden mean, leading you up slowly. You are naturally impelled to do the other things. That's what a lot of people miss out. It's this kind of Lutheran or poor wretch. You end up this poor wretch, struggling, and it's not to say there isn't suffering, but it's Christ gives you the grace and rejuvenating forces where it's not a bother, you know. Well, you know, it's still these things. It's what we go through is the depth of suffering and to the depths of joy. This is the Lord came to give us life abundantly. And that wasn't enough for people. This true, living, loving union, miraculous life resurrected, an interaction with the one God wasn't enough for some people. A life of service, helping others spiritually, right? Well, people wanted more, you know, the people want will to power. They want to be someone grand in the world, right? Even though this is the meaning of life and it's the true life. Nothing compares, right? But, you know, it's not enough. People wanted to be someone grand. Oh, so I may as well go have a look at this little thing. Maybe you'll find the rain pleasant on the umbrella as I get soaked. Yeah. Yes. I know when it's rained before, I've quite liked looking back on streams, so it's always worth coming on the rain days. This must have been a gun emplacement back in the day. Here we are. There's some gun emplacements down there. So now you see in true fact, in concrete fact, what I was talking about with these heads, these Sydney heads. This is where they put all the cannons and the like. But this is a good symbol and a good metaphor for the concrete. None of this is helpful unless you're moving towards the concrete of what we're talking about. None of this is abstract. This is a concrete reality one can experience. All true theology is grounded originally in that transcendent experience, in mysticism, in concrete fact. It's not a generalizable fact because not everyone goes through purification, illumination, union, right? It's possible for everyone to do that and verify it for themselves, the concrete fact. These aren't abstractions. Although, of course, I'm not right about everything, but that's what you want, though. You want it as possible to be connected to fact, but obviously with a clear epistemic principle. I think a good credo is courageous yet careful. Concrete, courageous, careful. But you have to be courageous. You can't just be overly, because you have to face up to your shame. You have to face up to the unconscious as a fact. People are scared to do that, naturally. It's like being in a dark room. Just sit there. You will eventually become scared. But that, of course, is you begin to face the unconscious. Like when you're and you go, well, how do I do that? That's the great first question. That is a great first asking of the question of being. How do I actually find the Lord in the deeper levels of being? That's what we have to do. Not only the duty, but actually to transform ourselves and see the depths of being. And, well, primarily uncreated in the sense of spiritual touch, right? But touch and be touched by the depth of reality, who is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. To do that, well, part of it is that phenomenological approach we've talked about before. That's just a preparation, of course, but not presuming the interpretation of your inner life that modernity has given you. Being watchful, especially. Of course, this is all about, again, this practice, this concentration without effort in prayer. That creates the space of separating you from the world so you can come into contact with foot washing from the Lord and his hierarchies. That can only happen if you withdraw your will from the world. I can't stress enough again how important this concentration without effort and practice is. It's all tied up with this. Yes, it's the rest of the Christian life. Yes, all the other practices we talk about, but you have to do this morning practice, make it part of your prayer rule. Do it in the morning. Even if you're doing it later, if you're doing it later in the day, you still need a morning prayer rule, right? You have to at least do some 5-minute prayer rule. So nothing ever gets your day started without God. As Unseen Warfare says, begin, if you can habituate. This is something I've done, but you lose your memory. You're a bit sort of, when you first wake up. But it is good to immediately start the Jesus prayer as soon as you wake up. But really, the first thing, just get that thing, you get in the shower, the first thing out of the shower, before you do anything, is go up to your icons and say whatever quick prayer you have to, if you're doing your practices later. But really, you should find a way to have, because, moving up from half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour to an hour in the morning. But if you really can't do that, you at least need to have a quick 5-minute prayer rule. So you're always waking and no one ever, you don't ever start your day without this easy, quick thing that is God's. But you're going to be doing it later in the day anyway. This is just for people who really are struggling with families. But they need to always have that so it never gets out of hand. So even if their day gets disturbed and they're not doing their half an hour or hour of practice in the middle of the day or whatnot, they still have that 5 minutes there and this anchor. So, but foot washing. We have to be willing to help others experience what get to. Has to be there in the back of our mind that we would help. It doesn't have to be 1 million people, but at least help some people. Of course, it's very difficult to a lot of people have trouble just thinking that this one practice, it's going to transform everything, but also make it easier. That's another thing, the concentration without effort in prayer that you do in the morning, that concentration, which I talk about in the Practices of Christian Mysticism, the lecture I have. Like I said, it makes everything else easier, and the more you do it. He does, because he comes into closer, slowly, union with you. All these things you do are dissolved through that. It's a big part of separating yourself out, along with everything else, but it's so important to making dealing with other sins easier. It's not this as much a burden, right? Of course, pray to Christ for help with every different sin as well. That's what you get more and more used to doing, relying on Him, not self-reliance, but Christ-reliance. But that becomes a fact of experience. It becomes not some abstraction. It's something truly recognized that it's prayer and then benediction. It's granted to you, right? That takes a long time though. It takes a long time. But also, it is in His time. But eventually, when union has become more and more, then it's something that, unless there's a particular thing that He's doing with you, if it's His will, then He provides the grace, even like for me to speak now. But say you're going through what the stage of the Passion understands as cross-bearing, or we understand as cross-bearing, that is comparable to, or is also, spiritual contraction. We're going through a metamorphosis in this process. When the tree metamorphoses, it expands on the horizontal and then grows upward, then expands on the horizontal and grows upward, right? So you grow on the vertical and then you're in a period of grace, and then you're taken to be strengthened. But it's because His touch is close and He's making transformations in your being. It's really helpful to understand that you're going through a contraction, right? That He's taking you through to strengthen you. Because you might think, oh, why am I feeling so, that it's a holy morning. St. John of the Cross talks about this. It's because His touch is close to you, transforming you. And so that cross-bearing is actually a combination of the first 3 stages of the Passion, which are the First is the relationship between above and below. Foot washing, getting that right. Ultimately, these three first stages are leading towards a harmony between body, soul, and spirit. Headland Park, eh? Oh, we might be able to get a look at this building here. Oh, it looks like it was maybe a pub or something. Oh, yes. Cool. Might as well have a look, right? At least get a capture of it on camera. I'm not going to go inside, but... naturally, it doesn't say what the building is. This goes into native history. So this would have been some form of barracks, I would guess, on the headland. I might as well get a bit closer, eh? Probably someone doing a wedding here, it looks like. Interesting. We don't need to get any closer, really. Although there are stairs there. Don't know where the stairs go. Let's have a look. Yeah, quite a beautiful building, no? The old sandstone. Okay, I guess there is a pathway here, but I think it just leads out onto a terraced lawn. What were we saying? Ah, yeah. The upward, above and below. And then the next stage of the passion, of course, is and look, when you're approaching foot washing, when you're doing your practices, you are getting used to this mode of reverence. You have to get into the proper soul mood. You're trying to learn how to bow your head in this foot washing. You have to have reverence for and agapic love for Christ. Then this relationship is established. He's a person. Love first. He's love. He loves you. He wants to bring love into the cosmos through you. Where are we? There. Oh yeah, okay, we can get there this way. We'll go around here and then left and down. And so we need that deep. You can start it as an action. I've said this before. You say, well, how do I do that? You begin with an action. You make you can mean it. You know, they say it like you mean it. Just think that to yourself when you're with your icons. I love you, Lord. And just say to yourself, mean it. And say it again, right? We're not pragmatists, but you can will your way. What I mean, I don't mean will as in a grasping will, I just mean you can want your way into it. I want to. And then I act, and, well, the becoming begins to happen. Naturally, like we can begin with the want and the desire, and then the Lord transforms us, right? Effort and grace. It's not just this predestination. Part of it is simply just establishing this mood of reverence, getting into the mood of reverence, reading the Gospel of John, recognizing, look, Scott said, like, I'm going to sit down here, I'm going to treat it like the sacred book it is, understanding it is the good spell. Understanding that this is actually, I'm dealing with a true divine ingression. The only Son of God. And through these words, more than just words can be sent to me. If I have the proper mode and mood if I bring myself into the right mode and mood of the sacred, if I get out of my, and see, do you see how this is bowing? It's getting out of your current state of being, will to power and goals, separating yourself up. You could even do a quick prayer or before a reading. Well, you should, of course, always. I pray. You get used to that though. More and more you become reliant on Christ. You pray for help to understand the Gospels, to have the mood, and then in the right mode and way of being. That's what we're after, the proper way of being. Being is a way of being. Being contains many ways of being. It's not just some mood, it's a mode or way of being that we need to approach the gospel with. And through that magic though, that can begin this transformation. Of course it can. Naturally. Naturally. Where are we? Oh dear, I don't think you can get through here. No, you can't. All right, I'll go back. Oh dear. I thought you could. Shame. I'll go back. There is a way though, I think. Further, oh, maybe there isn't a way. Doesn't seem to be. I thought there was a road there. Oh no, I think it probably is. Right? I think there might be a way through. I'll go back and see. That sign says. That's the trouble with starting the stream so late, is that I wanted to get something to eat as well when we get down to this area. I don't know if I need this anymore. There we go. There we go. Nice. There we are. Better view. Better view. Way of being. That's important for foot washing. For beginning. But like I was saying, the gospel can grant and will grant the gift of tears, will grant the life if you approach it in this way, especially the Gospel of John. And you'll notice things that you've never noticed before. These deeper layers of being and the Spirit. Wow, incredible. And that's what concentration without effort helps so much with too, is that these things that you'd approached before are completely resurrected, and, well, little by little, and that continues. But these things, whatever it is, the communion, everything, deeper and deeper, you're getting more essential, you're becoming more essential, more able to experience. Because what's happening through the stages of the Passion, through the imitation of Christ, you're from a non-likeness state, which is the empirical self that we are, right? With all our worldly goals, from that state. I hope this goes down there. Oh wow, I think the rain's coming back, sorry. We'll probably have to bring the umbrella out again. From that, it's being transformed through cross-bearing. Think about cross-bearing. You're bearing a black cross and a white cross. Your transcendent self and your subconscious, or your empirical self, right? You're kind of like the in-between those. But what is it, really? Little by little, as you do foot washing, as you deal with the scouring, which we'll go into what that is, you slowly, you begin with the non-likeness state. You're trying to recover this likeness. That's the transcendent self. When the whole thing's completed, let's say, and, it's a whole life process, but you begin with just an individual destiny and an individual sin, right? But because you're taking on the mode of foot washing, you're caring about others, loving others, wanting to help them. Well, then that's a mission outside of just you, isn't it? And so what happens is, first you're dealing with your angel. Everyone has an angel, right? And so as you're progressing, in a sense, his faculties come and join you. And that's the awakening of the spiritual experience that we're talking about and the closer relationship with Christ. And so once you move from only an individual perspective, then your mission isn't just your own, and an archangel is assigned to you. And what happens is, the portion of the likeness that he was helping you with, that you weren't doing yourself, that's ceded to you, and he's off sent on another mission with someone else, beginning with the angel, right? Then you have a mission for a group to help. And the missions change throughout life, but it's never necessarily a static thing. But a saint is someone whose likeness or non-likeness has been brought closer and closer to the full likeness of God, in terms of the thesis of the image and likeness of God, right? What does that mean? Is that when you have the full likeness of God restored, you're back in the state you were in before the fall. That's the ultimate goal of theosis, right? Where all the hierarchies, so it moves from an archangeloi, then to an exousiai. Then that's to do with a mission that would, and the mission can be small, but it would help all humanity, let's say. Writing a book that's useful to all humanity, that could be a mission. It doesn't have to be some massive thing. And so you see the saints, Francis of Assisi with the stigmata. You had a mission, and then of course it moves from the exousiai to the next hierarchy and straight to the seraphim. That's a mission for divine humanity, for Christ. So, and that's actually the whole process, in the sense that we're all called to be saints, right? It doesn't have to be some massive thing. It's not making us important. In fact, throughout the process, we're constantly, it's humility, it's bowing. I'm nothing, right? It's getting to the point where Christ is living and acting in us. And so that cross-bearing, you're bearing your lower nature in a contraction, a spiritual contraction, where you experience a kind of holy mourning. You're being strengthened, but you don't have the grace or the push of the angeloi or the Lord helping you. You have to just bear, the temptations without his grace or his forces helping you. That's what a spiritual contraction is. A part of. Here we are. I do think this will lead down. And what does that lead to? It leads to you coming into union with that higher cross, purifying and ennobling the lower one. What the Easterners do is they depersonalize and flee from the lower one. They depersonalize. That's abandoning conscience, what has to be done with sin. What the West does is they terminus the transcendent self and lean into, or rather, I got the conscience around the wrong way, lean into. One's depersonalization, the other is leaning into the low desire of the worldly, into the beastly, into the will to power, as we've talked about many times. But we are this in-between. It's this foot washing, right? Higher and lower, accepting the duty of the higher, which is a burden when you're in a contraction, because it's metamorphosis, little by little. But remember, this isn't a star, this is the life. This is the life. But it's both. It's the true depth of humanity, the true virginal, loving, life-filled impulses. Not this vitalism, which is souped up by false revelation, false romantic impulses, sex drive, whatever will soup up and intoxicate. This is full, in the whole Christian experience, the mystic experience isn't like a low medium. We're fully, through the Master and the Lord, we are fully conscious in this experience. That's what he made possible by sanctifying us with his sacrifice, by dying, is that we experience the depths of the spiritual world, not knocked into unconsciousness and coming back as a memory, not in some, where we're just an extension of some. You can have a vision, but really all a vision is when you become passive and you sort of fall into unconsciousness for a moment. What is that? Going to sleep for a moment and then coming back with the, or being able to see the, well, you're passive actually, you're still conscious though, even in that. So, yeah. Discerning, careful, conscious, but the full life of the spiritual world then can become a comprehensive Christian depth, comprehensive understanding and vision, and being able to see to the essence of things, beginning with intuition and spiritual touch and all the things that we talk about. But later, yes, sight. Of course, the primary is the loving heart, the truth of the loving heart, right? And spiritual touch, which are unseen. And the warnings about the imagination are quite right. Because, imagination is the first thing you're actually dissolving in this process, the first thing you face. That's what's getting washed. It's like we've talked about many times. It's full of the valuation and the desires of temporality. You could call it the first wine that needs transformation and metamorphosis, these deeper levels of the unconscious. And so this is that Chowder Bay we were talking about. This is colonial, as you can see, in the beautiful harbour. I think this is available for rent, or it was, but you wouldn't want to rent it, right? Because there's all sorts of things you have to account for, the historical nature of the building and what can't be done. Also letting people walk around in front of your rental. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want to rent it. Here we are in true Australian fashion. It has a veranda, shaded, because the summers here are brutal. Pretty cool. Look at that, look at the fog. I don't know if you can see that very well. I like a good hanging fog. Like me, a good hanging fog, me. You know what I also like? These little pebbles. This old-fashioned way of, hear that? Oh, some of it's getting in my shoes. I'm going to stop doing that. But what were we saying? We were saying, yeah, transcendent self. And so, of course, the transcendent self is not Christ or God. It's, well, what is this likeness of God? This is God's idea or future being that he's had for you and believes in you to achieve for all time. And it's possible to do so. It's your meaning of life, to have restored to you what was before the fall. And the angeloi, when they are your guardian, you always have a guardian. As your mission changes, let's say, and these missions change throughout life once you can discern divine will, Before your angel helps you with faculties, hints, and that sort of thing, always with only the permission of Christ though, right? He's helping you and defending you to what's higher, because again, there's a hierarchical principle here, as we know, is that's what the whole communion is about. It's about, if you saw the experience of St. John of the Cross without preparation, without careful learning of concentration, without effort and doing all the things we talk about, you'd be blown away into oblivion. We have to be developed by Christ, also to let go of all our sin and shame, which actually is what keeps us oblivious to the connection to the spiritual world and Him at the ground of our being. It's our fear and our shame. And it's in the depth of being. You don't even notice it. It's so deep and tied up with our sin. We don't even notice it. But once we start dealing with it, you know, the sword of the cherubim that guard paradise is love. But because you have shame because of your sin, you flee from it fundamentally without even realizing it. And so can't see the spiritual world because of that. And so what is that? Well, that's actually tied up with the crowning of thorns, the front and the back. The frontal human being. Oh, this place might still be open. I might be able to grab something quick to eat. I'll just put you guys here. Friends. Have to deal with this music. Hope we don't get a copyright strike on this stuff. We hope. We hope, we hope. Hopefully this is still open. Oh, can we not go down there? Oh, how do you get down there then? That sucks. Is there an elevator? Maybe. Doesn't look like it. I guess we'll just walk around. I think we can get through if we go down this way. Oh no, they've closed it off. Is there a way to it? Doesn't look like it. Alright, sorry everyone, bit of a bum steer here. Let's advance back. We were saying frontal. You know, the first three passions are about above and below, and the scouring, which is left and right, that's related to Satan and Lucifer. And what we were just talking about then was the combination of all three, which is a ennoblement of the lower cross and a duty in following the higher one. But yeah, why don't we talk about the scouring? The scouring you face in this process through, in your morning concentration without effort prayer and throughout the day, of course, you're attacked by the left and the right. How do we understand this left and right? Oh well. How do we understand this left and right? What's the quote? The left hand should not know what the right hand doeth. What does that mean? Okay, we're dealing with the knowing and the doing. What's Satan tied up with? The objective in the world, hypnotic. The desire of the world, the will of the world, the Willsmacht, is he tied up with. Willsmacht. But also, what is that tied up with though? Doing, because your hands do, they extend into the world. So The right hand is fundamentally Satan, the doing. Now, what don't we want? We don't want, what's the left hand? Is Lucifer. Lucifer is a, Lucifer gnosis is a knowing, but also is this egoistic, wounding sympathy and antipathy towards things, right? And its own desire. Desire to ascend, to escape, to... It's about feeling, Luciferic feeling, but it's also a knowing. So what it means is, what Lucifer and Satan do with the scouring is they're trying to make the left hand know what the right hand doeth. They're trying to get the action and worldliness to oscillate between each other, rather than us maintaining an upright Christian knowing and upstanding, following conscience, our guardian angel to begin with, following that, and rejecting this attempt at oscillation from our antipathy and sympathy and... Hi. Can I get a Coke Zero, please, and a Toasty? Have a Toasty?
Toasty is gone.
Oh, it's gone, is it? What else do you have?
We just have these pastries.
Oh, okay. What's this one here?
That one we made today, so it's served with fresh one, like that, ham and cheese and pickle butter in it. So
I'll take that, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Was it Coke Zero?
Yes, please. Thank you. Perfect. Did you say ham and cheese?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's got it inside. Is that tuna?
Oh, yes, that's
maybe
tuna.
that's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just making sure.
Ham and cheese.
Yeah, good. That's all right. I can undo it. It's fine. I'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. How's business going?
Business is good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
Today is a bit chill, so it's calm today, but
Yeah.
normally it's good.
Yeah. That's good. I often wonder because it's quite well, it's sort of remote, but
Right.
you're still here, so that's good.
Of course. Yeah, thank you.
All right. God bless. See you later. Sorry about that. All right. I'll get away from this music. Copyright strike. All right. We'll sit down and read our book. Look at this, hey, friends. Hopefully this is still working. Let me just check before I go any further. It should be. Where are we? Let's have a look here. Oh yeah, it's still working. I'm listening to St. Teresa of Avila's The Interior Castle right now, and she has some choice warnings about the imagination. Too right. Great, thank you for sharing that. And our friend Bram too has been listening to her on his pilgrimage. But yes, it's certainly a faculty to be wary of. It needs purification. It's something the devil certainly uses. Just like he'll throw thoughts at you, he can use the imagination as well. ZDMC says, blessings in the name of Jesus, our Master and the Lord of Resurrection. So true. Hail Mary, full of grace, gives some advice to our friend Derwent, who's talking about his wife. The Lord heals all this stuff. Chris Doak says the Coke endorsements continue. Yes, they do. It's a good drink, man. You have to admit it's the greatest drink ever made. If you don't have it for a while, and if you don't have it for a while, and then you have it with some greasy meal or whatever, it's so incredible. It's very good. And a Coke Zero, of course. And the recipe is pretty incredible. You got to give it to them. You got to give it to them in terms of making it sugar-free and taste exactly the same as Coke. Here we are. Oh look, we can even see a steeple in the far distance. Two of them. Two of them. And this is pretty secluded, guys. If you can come up here, you can see this is all Old Navy, right? And they lease these out to restaurants now. But there's no direct drive down here, I don't think. Or maybe there is over here, but when I've come on the weekend, when it's sunny, there's no one here. And it's right near the city. Pretty incredible. And very peaceful. Nice bush walks. Lots of stuff like this around here. If you like this sort of thing. I prefer mountains personally. I'd rather be in Scotland or something. But I still, you know, I've come to appreciate the beauty of it's really a Sydney and New South Wales, even Australia really, it's a coastal thing. Everything inland. There's some nice stuff, but truly it comes into its own in the coastal areas. Like, look at Canada, that's truly great for mountains and the like. But now we're going to find a table, sit down and read our book for a while. I think I'll have a little bit to eat. But what were we talking about? We're on an important subject. Yeah, the upper and lower cross, which is cross-bearing. Now, we were talking about scouring. This is where what does this mean? Really getting this. And getting the fact of, and just how nice is it? This even looks like rainforest here, and we're still really close to the city. We're not far, but there's really these areas that are sort of protected and nested off, cut off from things. We're not like an hour outside. This is right next to the city. It's 15 minutes away. Less. Near Mossman. Okay. There's something I forgot to turn on. I've got to turn on actually, so you can see where we are. Where are we? There we are. No longer a random location, now the true place we are at. So I think we'll find somewhere if we can. It looks like there's people on the sheltered area, but maybe we can find one that's undercover. We definitely need it. Though we could use the umbrella if we have to. Hey, it looks like picnic, people doing picnic. Some Alex Jones looking dude walking towards us. What was I saying? I want that view though, would be nice. Would be nice. And so, talking about something important. Although there are more picnic tables a bit further in, that might be less noisy. See, this is what people do, basically having a party under the gondola. I really don't want to listen to that shite. Shite. Yep. Where to go? Either we pick that or we go further. Oh, there is another gondola there. We're just going to have to listen to that music in the background. And so, what are we saying? A bit boring. The quest for quiet. There is a picnic table over here that's kind of under, a little bit away from that. They're kind of wearing, like, look at it, they're kind of wearing preppy gear, if you look at that. Preppy jumpers. Bit of a weird, looks like a theme party. One's dressed up like Sailor Moon. It's got to be a theme party, right? Or something. Too much anime. All right, let's just go deeper. We'll go deeper into the just disgusting music as well. Ugh. Ugh. Yep. Let's go back here and then set down. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about coming to a public place and you're not paying for it and sort of like I mean, I sort of polluted a bit by shooting it. I polluted a bit with my talking, but I'm not that loud and I'm gone pretty quick from a location. I know, look, hey, people are having a good time, but you're kind of forcing other people to listen to your shitty music, which is annoying. But look, we even have some nice sounds of birds back here. Dry off the table. This will be all right. Good enough. Okay. Woohoo! Yeah, distant enough for it to not be a problem. A bit damp on the seat, looks like. That'll be fine. All right. Now, do we want to look at the park or the sort of rainforest? Not sure yet. Yeah, might as well have that direction. You can have those juveniles in the background who can observe. All right, there we are. Nice. Okay, let's get this out onto a tray. I don't know if you guys ever watched that guy that does the MREs. That's a good, I enjoy that. I enjoy the MRE unboxings. Okay. This time we got our umbrella. This time we're not going to be moved around. This time we're not going to be messed with. All right. I'm going to use this vest to clean up the condensation. We're going to read our book again, reading Rudolf Steiner. Also continue to talk about what we've been talking about. Yeah, get all that water off. Nice. That's pretty good. Bit more. Still a little bit damp. Boom. Sorry about the boredom. There we are. There we are. Look at that. Look at it. Oh yes. Good, good. Capital, capital. Yes. That's pretty nice, isn't it? That ain't so bad. I'll be here. Bit of that action, bit of that action. Bit of this action. Yes. I like it. Okay, everyone. Wow. Late start today. We'd almost be finished by now if I'd started at 12, but we had some things to do this morning. Here's our book by the old friend Rudolf. But for now, let's have a drink. So like I always say, I hope these things are nothing unless they are impelling, hopefully with spiritual, hopefully with impulses, hopefully the Lord is always here. Hopefully there's things come from him. I pray for everyone who watches this channel every day and also the members of the fellowship. So, and I know that the Lord hears my prayers, and is already helping people who've reached out to me, contacted me, people that were in a lot of darkness, right? And so, you know, it's not about the current affair issue. It's about what the Lord wants us to do. It's about healing, not will to power. Also, not the critical mode. Some of that has to happen, but there's too much of it in the sense of, if you live in that critical mode, that scientific criticism, you are eventually sort of cut off from the living waters, because you are combatively participating in the will to power, or at least other people that are possessed by it. So that they are demons, right? So you really need to be endlessly purified. Like I said last week, this is why the Crusaders had contemplation practices, to protect them from the demons that were naturally going to attack them. Thank you, Lord, for applying for everything you give us, me, and for this food. And so that's what we're after, healing. And it's a constant temptation, believe me, to get to be, you know, I deal with temptation every morning. It is 1, 2, participate in that mode. Damn, getting all over my arms. The filth, disgusting. Get your disgusting, despicable filth. It's just water, calm down. Healing. And so that's what we're after, right? The living waters. And these streams are nothing, and the lectures are nothing, unless they are preparations and hopefully impulses to help you begin concentration without effort in prayer, begin the practices we talk about. To make this not a program that makes you feel a bit better to watch, like like some streamer, game streamer, or a comedy stream, but an impulse to have your life saved and have your inner life resurrected. To the tragedy, pardon me, the tragedy we face actually in this process of the passion, when we participate in the Lord's passion through this initiation, the tragedy is waking up to who we used to be, waking up to the life. We actually recognize that we are or have been bankrupt once he begins to resurrect our inner life. And thank God it's possible. Thank God he's here as the master. Thank God that all these demons that possess you and the people that attack you and your resentment all dissolved, little by little. But then eventually, you say you have some argument, whatever, with people that are close to you or whatnot, or even just things that come up. Some people can just say one comment and it can set off things. Well, the very next morning, the best thing to do is to immediately drop into the depth of prayers, right? And the Lord dissolves these things. Because you become a peacemaker. That's what a peacemaker is. You're cut off from the demons of temporality. And that happens through collaboration with the Lord every morning. And so often I'll leave something and you go to sleep, and obviously things are happening in your unconscious while you're asleep, and it's still with you in the morning, right? But as soon as you flee to the Lord, you run up the tree to the Lord, doing the concentration without effort in prayer for that time. And you need time to actually get in towards the depths for him to begin to wash your feet, right? Enough withdrawal. And it takes a long time to get into that mode where you can, these things happen faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, right? The things you experience at the end of the hour begin to be experienced almost straight away later on down the process. Union becomes at least a lower level of union with grace and the breath, and these things become a faster happening little by little. If you just stick to keeping the hour going, start small, habituate, 15 minutes. I have to keep repeating these, guys, because it's got to be practical, and people don't recognize how important this one practice is. It's going to change your whole being. He collaboratively will. It is the ultimate poverty. It is the ultimate becoming poor in spirit so he can ingress. It is the concentrated becoming of into the cup. So you can become and receive the scepter. A scepter is a cup with a top on it, right? It's the crown meets the cup equals the scepter. It's divine will in union with human will, grace, as a fact of experience. It's also, excuse me. I'll only eat half of it. That's good. Great live stream, great entertainment, Scott. This isn't entertainment, of course, but all right, good enough. Perfect. Caffeine. Oh, there is some caffeine in the Coke itself, but I'll have some here anyway. All right. Man, that's better, right? That's better. Let's leave them in there for now. Now I'll put them back in my ears, actually. Blocks out some of that sound. I don't have to listen to them. You might have to, but I don't have to. I don't have to. Okay. And so we were talking about, well, look, we can read this for now. But where we left off was we're talking about the scouring. Maybe I should finish that point on the scouring. The scouring, the whipping. We're being whipped from our old valuations, our old imagistic unconscious, what is the unconscious but a dislike and like for things, our value of hate and loves, incorrect hate and loves. That's what Lucifer is. He's an incorrect, a loving of the wrong things. Because he was an angel, right? He doesn't love Christ. He started to love wrong love. He still has love as part of his being in terms of what he, like Eros almost. Like it's like a desire for the wrong things. Satan He's different. He just has expectation. Really, he feeds off the soul experience of what he can consume from Lucifer, from the Luciferic part of our being. He feeds. That's the only way he can experience, is through us to consume. He doesn't have anything of his own. He's ultimate separateness. He is death. He's the Lord of death. Christ is the king of, is that the way to put it? He's the Lord of death, and Christ is the master of death, or he's the king over death. Mastered, faced Satan in his own realm by dying as the Son of God and the Son of Man. The Son of God, though, cut off from the Father, everyone breathless, awaiting, and then after 3 days, understand the utter rejoice in the cosmos as it's completely transformed, but as he returns after 3 days, it's cosmological. It's the whole new cosmos reconnected to the true emanation, true eternal. Finally. Obviously through the preparation of the people of Israel as well, right? But that's a one people set aside to make it possible, to set it all up. Cosmos of love becomes then possible. But the whole hierarchies of good, breathless, because he is our breath, he is eternal breath, awaiting the rejoice of the victory. Their breath returned. Victory. He is victory. In the darkest depths of hell, and hell is here, friends, right now. You can be in hell here, just like you can be in heaven here. You can be in paradise today here, as he promised, right, to the criminal on the left. Today, you'll be with me in paradise. And that actually means the ever-present, true real, the true present moment that truly connects past and future. True future to true past, providence and remembrance from the eternal. There is the true present, like present means sort of torn away, but present. But the true present isn't just a happening of the now, of this object around us, right? The true present is in the eternal. If you go deeper, it's Christ. And you experience that in crucifixion. It's possible to, that's the meeting with Christ. The true present, where death meets life, where the eternal moment is being both extinguished and granted. Again, deeper than the subject and the object, at the ground of. Because you are getting closer access to these things, because the 7 days creation still exist now, they happen now. And through the practices, you can get closer to those things as a fact of experience. I mean, I should talk about the crucifixion later today, but yeah, let's just jump back to the scouring. But I'm just giving you a sense of that happens also through this concentration, is that the higher levels of concentration without effort is that you become, as consciousness, you become a point, right? Whereas you're not, everything is concentrated out, but with no effort, collaboratively with the Lord. This is over, a year longer. You're being crucified through the concentration because you're not attending any other part of being. You're not thinking about anything else but this what you're attending on, which is the center and the all, but that becomes actually spiritual touch later. And it's just that one thing that you see and are really, and you are in that moment, right? Because you're in deeply relaxed. You're waking up and going to sleep at the same time. That becomes more clear. And symbolically, I'm just going to say it symbolically, is that concentrated point is able to, he pours himself into the cross from there, that concentrated point. And that's not going to make sense, but for people that maybe you're watching this and it's been a year since I did this stream, you understand what I'm talking about. And I'm not the only one that said that, of course. That's Valentin Tomberg talks about the same thing. It helps me see the same thing and then experience it. But eventually that's poured out into the cross, and that's symbolic talk there. Because what else is the cross? What else is he? You got to go through the other things that he is. And again, that's symbolic. You're not going to understand that until you're actually experiencing it. But the point is, you're crucified. Your consciousness is crucified. And that leads to the meeting with him. Obviously, it's smaller unions to begin with. But eventually that leads to the... What is that also? When people call it the ultimate intuition, it's becoming him. Becoming. Intuition is it's little by little, more and more identifying with him. He's transforming you into him at the ground of your being, until one day, long in the future, depending on your moral development, years, obviously you're getting more and more spiritual experience as you go on, right? You've already been resurrected in many ways, but eventually leads to the ultimate crucifixion, which is, this is how the passion relates to initiation, is taking what I just mentioned with union, because the distance between you and your higher cross becomes almost nothing. In your deep concentration and prayer, between your transcendent self and your becoming towards your the likeness of God that God has always wanted you to restore. And once that happens, you're getting to its maximum point of the likeness, of the non-likeness transforming into the likeness. That means that all those three levels of the archangel and the mission, whether it's for the individual, for a collective group, for humanity or divine humanity, well, that's the final step, that divine humanity. That's Francis of Assisi stuff. That's the likeness becomes restored, and then you experience this meeting with Christ. And the full transformation, the complete transformation of Christ living and acting in me occurs. And what does that mean? It means, well, of course, the Lord isn't the transcendent self. The transcendent self is your restored likeness. The angeloi, whatever faculties they were helping you with, as you've restored the likeness state, because you were the non-likeness and you're becoming the likeness, the spiritual experience that they take care of is granted to you at those different, from angel to archangel to excusii to seraphim. And at the final moment, that's what I'm talking about when it's the complete intuition, which means becoming Christ. Then you have the meeting with him. And then it's what I'm talking about. It's experiencing the eternal present, ultimate presence, which is actually Christ. And then after that, this is like, it's something that goes your whole life, but the eternal and the temporal moment are always present. But look, this is complicated metaphysically. But that's where it leads. That's where you actually become crucified. You really do identify with Christ. You really do get taken through lower level of what he experiences and how he's leading you and with grace. Because like I've said before, grace enters the breath. You go through a dying of firstly different levels of your unconscious, but then, you know, Christ enters the blood and the rhythmic system. So communication can come from the rhythmic system, which involves the heart and respiration. Not only in the spiritual phenomena that we talk about, but also in, like I said, in the respiratory system. He enters the blood. Remember how we talked about blood before with paganism? The blood is corrupted, it's tied up with demons. Blood is not some material phenomena. It's also spiritual. We just don't recognize this. He heals the blood and actually joins it. But yeah, we jump forward to the crucifixion in terms of steps and how it relates to the mystical process of purification, illumination, union. Why don't we just jump into what Steiner's talking about here? Now, where we left off, it was talking about Michael and a new age of Michael, and the way Steiner sort of talks about this stuff, and we're not anthroposophists, he just does have some things that are worthy of being said, so we are reading him. Some people won't like that, that's fine. We're discerning, but we are interested to hear what he has to say. So, he's talking about the dawn of the Michael age. He believes that it's after, and this is true, these are patterns that play themselves out. People talk about Kali Yuga. The truth is about Kali Yuga, those were patterns of this memory we were talking about from paganism and the Lucifer Gnosis. The patterns of nature and this continuing cycle of the different festivals of the month. Really, those are deteriorations from after the fall. Like I said, the spiritual just deteriorates. It's not even just this cycle, but yeah, in that Eastern thought, there's this Kali Yuga period, and they all say we're in this Kali Yuga period. There's no escape from it or whatnot until the period ends or whatnot. No. There is, because of these mixed waters, these patterns do continue because we have continued our sin. We aren't converting ourselves to the cosmology of love, which is the ultimate cosmos, not cosmology, the ultimate cosmos, which is the new cosmos of love, not of a sort of dead wisdom. But there is this pattern of this eternal recurrence of, say, Kali Yuga and these different periods. Kali Yuga ended with the incarnation of Christ. There was a fascistic period where it was just this law, this dead law, that it had become, and Christ came as the promise fulfilled. No longer is it these rules that were necessary, the old covenant. That applies to the rest of the whole cosmos, right? What does that mean? So why is materialism so dead now? Because Satan and Lucifer still exist. They're still fighting over us. We haven't. So the leftover patterns that aren't the essence of things still play out. But even so, that materialism, it kind of ended, right? In terms of the Luciferic spirituality, it ended in the 18th century. So that Kali Yuga, those cycles will still keep going. But the ultimate cosmological Kali Yuga, this death of the spirit, the resurrection transformed the cosmos. Christ is now available to find, and he leads you to the true life, which is the ground of being. So what am I talking about? I'm restored. Like, obviously it's a continued salvation, staying on the path. But any mystic will tell you, they are restored. There's no Kali Yuga for them. It's only you who are stuck in materialism, which is the dead leftovers of this paganism and its cycle and its dead memory. If you go to the essence of things, you can have your whole inner life resurrected because Kali Yuga is defeated. Hell is defeated. Those old patterns are defeated. You just have to accept Christ. So naturally the perennialists will all say that they're in Kali Yuga. Not the case for people that are essential, the people that are willing to do the practices of mysticism, which transcends any Platonism, any proposition, any system. That's Satan. The systematization is the crystallization of this Lucifer gnosis, right? You're dead. Your Platonism, your propositional world system and cosmology is just a dead concept. It has no essential quality to it. You are Kali Yuga. Yeah, you're a pattern of a leftover dead, necrotic. Like, you're essentially like a necromancer trying to bring back an old Lucifer spiritual experience, or just dwell in the dead concepts. Your concepts aren't even concepts. They're abstracted. They have no content. You talk about Platonism, people talk about all these things of dead philosophy. You're only dealing with the bones of what was a former Luciferic spiritual experience. What's missing? The valuative push of content. I mean, some of the people that get invested in will to power, yeah, you can discover the leftover push of the numinous and the false Holy Spirit. So they can have an untrue content, a realized untrue content. But yeah, most people are just abstracted. You don't have any content, any essentialness to it. There's no true thinking, and true thought is connected to, because what does a content mean? It's something that's been grasped. Although a concept, you need to endlessly be in touch with the essence of things for a concept to have content, to have push to it, to have impulse to it. Everything starts with impulse, from will to a knowing, from a ascending of thought, ascending of spiritual impulse to becoming a knowing. Like a breath almost, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and then breathing out. Breathing in, up to the head, then out to the world. But yeah, these things are complicated. I'm not going to go into that today, but let's keep reading. We're talking about, and what he's essentially exploring is this Michaelic age that is now, what's happening is essentially the satanic dragon who Michael slays. Satanic dragon is all the thinking, right? It's the resurrection and of thought itself. To connect it with this Michaelic age, to connect it with Christ. It's fundamentally a Christian idea to say all this thinking can be properly grounded, not in this original Lucifer gnosis of what all old philosophy might be, but in Christ, the divine being that gives everything life, also true thinking. True thinking, like a primordial concept or something connected to something concrete, transcendent experience, spiritual experience, is we're leading into an age where we need to restore our speaking, and concepts are speaking needs to have the spirit restored to it. So I speak to you, and then alongside it, something is disclosed with it. The logo, Christ, right? He sends impulses. We've lost that, but the more of us go through this process, the more our speaking, our propositions can then be de-rigified, decrystallized, resurrected, melted by love. And like people say, what does that mean? Melted by love? It's melted by the divine, like so our speaking is noticed by other humans to contain way and life with it. Not just, well, the truth is ultimately always with the way and the life. It has being with it, has essence, has true content, and that's how it used to be. But no one has any memory of that, right? Because it's just so far back. That's what the Lord's word is. It contains the bread of life. The Lord's word, when he spoke it, touched every part of their being all the way to their essence, from their vital, very vital unconscious, their soul forces, their psychological unconscious, these different parts of the deeper parts of their being and their body enlivened their whole past, gave life and unbound and removed the hate that was tied up in their whole past for the apostles that heard it, right? Whatever they did, like when he spoke, that's what happens. And so he is going to resurrect our speaking too. Not in tone, but something else that touches deeper, that goes alongside and discloses. But it's for those with eyes and ears to hear and see. If you're tied up, like most people are, in the news cycle and will to power, and you don't even realize it, right? News cycle, politics, whatever, even people like leading a Christian life, but tied up in that other world, they just won't hear. They don't sense that there is something else alongside and with. And I know this because I see the people that react to what is being said and the way they react to it. And then the types that don't. They just ignore it. They think, oh, what's this? What's this? It's nonsense. You know? We can substantiate things in an Aristotelian way, in an empiricist way, we can give you a political breakdown of A, B, C, D conclusions substantiated and justified. Yes, we can do that. We can do that. But like that video I just did, it was an exhortation and with a lot of prayer involved to be guided. Even the title, I didn't write the title. I was completely thinking some hooking will to power title to try to get people to watch it. And it's something that was, the Lord said. And then I obviously discerned that later and asked if it was him or whatnot. Hope springs eternal. People were calling that, it seems like Yeats. I've never read Yeats. Like I said, I didn't write that. I didn't come up with that title. But, I might have by accident read Yeats. I think I have in some compilations. But no, it's not. That's the kind of collaborative thinking that becomes more possible as you begin to learn to discern the Lord's through asking questions and receiving the answer as conscience. And people would be familiar if they actually had access to conscience anymore, of the serene peace that's sent with the joy is a way of knowing and sent as an answer. It can be. Must have the serene peace with it, as the lecture we talk about of how to discern the Holy Spirit. Not joy on its own. It's serene peace with joy. As the Philokalia and all the saints talk about, it's serene peace with joy. And the Lord uses, in the Passion, he uses the contractions to show you the difference between also him and the devil. To show you what it's like without him, so you know when it is him. He's teaches you discernment as well, to know what it's like without him. But also to face sin without him. Then you know, because the grace is removed and you're facing an attack from the devil, or even spiritual experience that's false, which is like, it's electrified, polemical. It's like the saints describe it. St. Teresa of Avila talks about this. And that's true. What she said's true. I've experienced this as well, in terms of the, like bustling, it's like a speedy, it's like having too much caffeine. Sometimes a flood of joy, that's happened before, intoxicating, but with electricity kind of. It's like too much caffeine. The Lord does not do that. It's with peace. But also what she says is very true about when the Lord says something. I mean, what you do and what we've learned to do is that when you really need to check, you can't just go, I heard a thought, it seems like the Lord. It does align with tradition, it was the Lord. That's one part of an epistemic principle. You have to include this asking conscience, asking the question and waiting for and the answer of the serene peace and joy to confirm. And I have the whole procedure of how to do that, right? And you have to add that to it, and it only can come about through concentration without effort, and prayer, and asking. And then going through the process of what I described for how to do it. And so that's added to what you're doing. Because all those monastics and saints talk about that. That's how you discern divine will. It's through that peace and joy. But it doesn't have to come after. You can actually ask and he sends it. Was that you, Lord? And you wait after you've done a basic concentration without effort in prayer until you've sort of cleared. You're not on the surface anymore. You're, you know what I mean? You're moving into, your eyes are closed, you're moving into silence, hesychism. Then you ask, as we talked about in the fellowship recently. But you see, too many people I'm like, well, hang on, you've got to do that too. It's part of a wider epistemic principle. Every time I'm asking, right? And a lot of the time it's not. And that's why I'm so grateful. Because you've got to be aware of spiritual deception is always around the corner. Oh, sorry, what was I going to say? Teresa of Avila about but sometimes when the Lord comforts you and says something, if a whole army of people had told you the same thing, it would have had no effect on the contracted state of mourning you might be in or whatnot, or fear or something like that, right? But then you hear a word from, and this is, look, don't expect this stuff. You're just doing it for a long period of time. You're setting aside a year. We're just going to try this for a year. What Scott's saying for a year. You're going to experience stuff before a year, believe me. But it's like you're putting it aside and not having expectations, like I said. But a word from the Lord carries authority, which means it carries value, which means it carries all the spirit and the word we're talking about. Is that a whole army of people could have told you the same thing and it wouldn't have comforted you. But when it's said by the Lord immediately, it's not always, but especially when it's a comforting word, like blessings be upon you, or it is I. Do not be afraid. That's of course what we know from the gospel. And it just carries weight in terms of granting you a peace, and a million other people could have said the same thing. Your normal thinking says the same thing, it does nothing, right? So I'm just saying it's something that is experienced, especially with that comes from a particular comforting thought, but it's not something that's always there. But with the words said, because it's not things he says aren't always about, and it's when he wants to, of course, right? Whoa, branch just dropped. It's when he wants to. It's when he wants to. It's when it's right for moral development as well. And so Michaelic age, yeah, okay, I haven't even started reading it. Scott, yep, I'm sorry. Sorry. Where were we? Okay, let's have a read. He who is able to value such things knows what a transformation took place during the last third of the 19th century in respect to human thinking. Previously, man could only feel how thoughts formed from within his being. From the above-mentioned time, he was able to lift himself above his being. He could turn meaning towards the spiritual. When they translate German, that meaning might be being, like sign. So it could be he could turn being towards the spiritual. Michael meets him there and shows himself to be related to all thinking activity. I'm not saying I agree with Steiner necessarily, but it's interesting. He frees thoughts from the region of the head, frees them from the sort of crystallized brain, right? That's my addition. He clears the way to the heart for them. He liberates enthusiasm from feelings so that man can mindfully dedicate himself to all which he can experience in the light of thoughts. The Michael age has dawned. Hearts begin to have thoughts. Enthusiasm no longer streams from mere mystical obscurity. And what he means by that is like a low enthusiasm driven by intoxicants, right? That's what he means. He doesn't mean what we talk about, which is in the height of clarity. It's not unconsciousness. That's the difference, right? Christ, what he brings is in the full light of day, but in the utter depths can we experience. We're not unconscious. We're not in a woozy. We're not drinking some poison, and then not drinking some DMT. No, it's in full discerning, knowing. Deep relaxation, of course, but that's what the Lord grants. And so, but full of it's the highest life and the depth of full spiritual experience. So, the highest spiritual experience and the highest discerning clarity. So, but also it's not rigid though, in the sense of you're not like, oh, that's A equals B equals C while you're watching, right? You're silencing your thinking. But you're there, consciously there, is what I'm saying. Clear. And so, anyway. Well, that's basically what he says. But from thinking endowed with clarity of mind. It's clarity. You're not drunk, but full of it's the highest life and highest spiritual experience. To understand this means to receive Michael in one's sensibility. Thoughts which today strive towards grasping the spiritual must come from hearts which beat for Michael as the fiery prince of thought of the universe. Interesting. That might be Michael's mission for this age, but we can just as easily, or I would, put Christ in there. Of course, love the angels, they have their missions, and Steiner seems to believe that Michael now, from Christ's resurrection afterwards, became the next level up, archai, which is sort of this, you become an angel of the epoch, an angeloi of the epoch, rather than just a folk group. Not an archangel, but an archai of an age. It's interesting. I don't know if I'm not saying either way, I'm just saying it's interesting. But it's certainly true of Christ. Our hearts must beat for Christ. And he enlivens and will resurrect. It's true Christian thinking to understand that all thought systems he can dissolve and bring true life to them, and also stop them from being encapsulations that hold you inside an idol. Because what we're after with all this preparation, everything we're talking about, it's to help get you to the things themselves, or get you to look at your spiritual experience, look at even your plain experience and try to get like a phenomenologist would do, get an epoche around it by basically just putting all your thinking aside and your judgments and saying, I'm not making any assumptions about what's given to experience. I'm being watchful and see anything new that occurs to me, I'm going to log and say, what's this? I'm not going to make a presumption about visual snow or sort of static I might see. A lot of people have that phenomena when they look at the clouds or something like that you can see. It's just like a TV signal when it's out of tune. Very see-through though, very subtle. Not making any materialist presumptions about anything that you see in her vision, but gather the data, gather the experience that appears to you. If anything new happens, note that down, and then you gather as you're doing these practice and doing the collaborative practice with Christ and hesychism, in concentration without effort, in prayer, in going into silence, you're bound to experience these different things. You're going to remember those things because things have patterns, and you learn, as the Way of the Pilgrim talks about, you'll slowly learn the mystic truths that all the Gospels and the Church Fathers are actually talking about. Because some mysteries have to be shown to you in the depth experience by Christ and his angeloi, right? Because if it's sort of given away, not given away, but pre-framed. But anyway, the point is, preparation, re-enliven resurrected thought to melt the over-crystallized enclosing systems that try to keep us in enclosed circles. That's what Christ fundamentally is. He is the miraculous ingression into a closed system. The snake coiled itself up in the fall, closed off facticity and reality from emanation, and it's just been this eternal recurrence of whatever energy, spiritual, was in the deeper levels of facticity, not to the emanation though. And the Lord, boom, now the Sabbath has returned. And if you reach out to him, if you do what he says, move towards a poverty of the first leftover spirit of that enclosed loop, he miraculously ingresses into your being and reality. He wants to help you. You just have to freely find him. Be willing to put the time in. You have to put the time in, right? You have to put the time in. Can you not watch with me for an hour? Okay, continue reading. One can spiritually approach the third hierarchy. Archai, archangeloi, angeloi. When one becomes so acquainted with thinking, feeling, and willing that he sees in them the spirit being active in his soul. Okay, that is so important. If we look to the tradition, we see in Unseen Warfare, edited by two Orthodox saints also this book, but the priest in that talks about, well, of course, the thoughts aren't just your own. Understanding, it begins with the understanding that the thinking that's sent to you, the impulses that are sent to you, that's will and impulse, thinking and feeling, aren't necessarily subjective. A lot of the time they're not. That's the preparation that begins. You've got to be doing the practices, of course, as well. But you've got to slowly convert into the mode that you're sharing, like the thinking that comes to you, and if you don't accept this, then you're going to have trouble recognizing when you are being communicated with, or it's not going to happen as often, right? The thinking sounds like it's the same voice that you normally think in. It might not necessarily be you though. The ancients, the apostles, the church fathers all understand this, that the thoughts aren't necessarily from us. Right? Demons. That's why we are this is all getting out of the modern perspective that it's a unified thing. But you have to convert into this. It's not as much as just saying that. I mean, you have to also wonder that when a thought comes up. You practice that in the sense of, I wonder what that was. That me? Actually, start treating it like it's probably a demon, especially when it's a sinful one, right? And so thinking, feeling, and willing. Impulses, feeling, and willing, and thinking. That this is the third hierarchy, but it could also be fallen hierarchies of these types. At first, thinking places only images in the world, not something real. Feeling moves in this imagery. Speaking for reality in man, but cannot fully manifest it. Willing unfolds a reality which requires the body, but which does not act consciously in its formation. What is essential in thinking in order to make the body the basis of this thinking? What is essential in feeling to make the body a participant in a reality? What is essential in willing in order to consciously participate in the body formation is alive in that third hierarchy. Essential essential in thinking, essential in feeling, essential in willing, that make your body and your being a participant in formation of body, participation in a reality, and a basis of thinking. It's alive. So here, that's right. We live in the dead, crystallized, abstract propositions and concepts that we share amongst each other. They become idols for us. They don't open us up to the deeper levels. They originally came from angels. Even in this Luciferic gnosis we've been talking about, they're fallen hierarchies first in that spiritual experience. If you go back to the medieval period, they understand that that they're sent thought. They even experience it that way if you go far enough back. So it's enlivened, and the muses or the angels send the thought and impulses. They don't just see it that way. It happened that way, then it dried up and became subjective and then started happening in a subjective manner. But often it's not just this subjective thing, especially when we become more objective, especially our temptations, they come from demons, right? But we are getting back into that mode, that way of being, where thought, feeling, and will, in their essence, are from there, from these divine beings, right? Language, wording, this all originally comes from, begins with divinity, transcendent, when you go back far enough. If you do enough cultural anthropology, philosophy, that's what Heidegger, people like that, Steiner is doing. You're going back to these old accounts and seeing that's how it was. And this becomes truer for us, protected in full sobriety, in full clarity. The Lord brings us back to that, resurrects the true spirit, not the false spirit, purified. So it's not just it's not a religion. It's the essence of things. He is the essence of things, the true essence of things, and resurrects them for you to experience. And we understand this too because there weren't any religions originally. The spirit was just so obvious. Even, I'm talking about false spirit part though, right? But it was obvious to them. Through Christ though, it can be obvious to us, little by little, over a long period of time, with courage, with clarity, with care, discerning. Yeah. What a rant! 6 p.m. Let's have a look at the old comments. Sorry, I haven't really read much. Chris Stokes says ASMR eating channel now. ZDMC says the Lord reigns, let earth be glad. Yes. Let the coastline rejoice, the Australian coastlines. Yeah. He certainly does. It is certainly true. Oh, it's quite dark here. That's all right though. 6, eh? Might have a little bit more of this roll, speaking of that. Read a bit more. I'll go for it. When did we start? I guess it was like 2:30 or 3 or something, right? Been going for about 3 hours. Maybe the stream will go a bit, maybe for another hour. Because it is going to start getting dark at 7. I have to make my way back. But thanks for joining me. Thanks for being here. I hope it helps, as always, to inspire the practical effort, right? Inspire you to shut the laptop and find hesychism, find the silence. Because it's possible, friends. That's good. Sorry, just give me a moment. Isn't that so wonderful? The Lord, the risen Christ, comes and eats. Remember? Son of God and Son of Man. One of us, yet the Son of God. He gets you. He understands. That's why he's the golden mean. He knows how to slowly bring you up. Little by little. He just wants you, a tiny bit at a time. Strive to do a tiny bit better than your current best. Better than your best. Tiny little bit at a time. And he'll help you do that. He knows you. Also, he's at your essence, so he knows what's going on, right? And God, what we've done to him, we all crucify him before we truly find him. And I've asked for him recently, just, you just feel more and more in your gratitude. I already know he's forgiven me for that, but just asking again anyway because of how I crucified him, how we crucify him. But when we're younger, right? Jokes. All he's ever done is love us and try to help and hint without breaching our freedom. Little in a million, he's so carefully in the tiniest ways, hinting without breaching your freedom. Hoping, in hope, he has more hope for everyone than anyone ever will for you, even than you do for yourself. That's how careful he is with his hints. And rescues. Right, because look how hard it is to convert someone. Try to convert an atheist with apologetics. What he does is hinting, helping, without breaching freedom, by some big power miracle. So delicate, helping. But also just right there. Of course, you can't see it. You can't see it to begin with. You can't see it. We haven't seen it our whole lives. It just takes doing these things that make you more essential, that because of your freedom, you freely come to him first, then he begins to show you. Internally, and then also externally with the miraculous, but little by little. And you notice that throughout the process, you keep careful awareness of what's new. I haven't seen this before. Be watchful. There you go, you might as well have a look at what it is. Ham, cheese, pickle, bit of mustard. Simple is best. In this case, I was thinking that you guys might enjoy this, I don't know, but I'm thinking I'm going to do it. I'm going to get some French MREs, which are military rations. Apparently they've got the best rations, but they also have a little kit to heat it up, right? They come that way, but apparently they're incredibly good. And I'll just do the unboxing here when we're at the table and try it out for a meal when we do a long stream. Just as a little thing. We're also going to do a boat trip soon too. I'm going to get the boat license. take the stream out on and go places then that you normally can't get to on the harbour or wherever. Hire a boat. Wow, the light's starting to light up. Twilight beginning. People getting ready to enjoy their Saturday night. Sorry about, just give me a bit more. Let me finish. Winged Bull. Hey Scott, Bram here. Great talk yesterday. It was good. We had an incredible talk with some of the older members of the fellowship. The main people who, and look, everyone who has taken it seriously and acted the practice for the right amount, leading up to the right amount of time, the Lord transforms them. It's just it's a matter of time, moral development. If you go through the process, we had a great talk about also the discernment. And Niran, one of our great friends, has made progress to the point where he can do the discernment we talk about, discerning the Holy Spirit to be able to ask questions and follow divine will. And it's about learning that process little by little to trust in the conscious sending of the serene peace and joy as an answer. Learning how to follow divine will. And this is how we bow the intellect, as I talked to Bram about yesterday. We talked about this. Is little by little, once we can discern that, what are we doing? We're listening to this conscience from him, an intuition. We're not calculating anymore what we do. That is bowing the intellect. We're beginning to obey something that's beyond us and can communicate with us in these ways and through these spiritual faculties, but in a very real way that we can ask a question and then he answers. Later on, further on down the line, he'll say words, helping and teaching, like the shepherds of Bethlehem, right? You can, if you pray, pray for it as well, for help. Again, it's a slow process though. It took a long time for that to begin to happen, right? Words are very rare, occasional. You're not sure it's him to begin with because you can't discern it, but once you can discern, it's still very occasional. But little by little, you begin asking so many questions that he'll send a word every now and then, which is that kind of revelation, let's call it, which is simply, is characterized by like the shepherds of Bethlehem. It's not just a force or a push or a like guidance of a direction where it's a teaching, because if someone sends a word, it has a context in it. Like when he'll say a word, you'll immediately know what he means, even when he says one word. And of course you confirm that it's him as well. I mean, these things will make more sense as you begin to be able to do it. But if you look at the Philokalia and what the saints say, they talk about the peace, serene peace with the joy, and also what the devil does with, and Valentin Tomberg talks about this too, when he tries to deceive you with intoxicating joy. And Bram, our great friend, young, is on a pilgrimage to Spain, as we've said. You guys should know this by now, right? We've said it a few times. And that's great. This is a great fellowship because we can know each other. That's not some, it might not be small forever, but at the moment, it's good. This is the only way it really can happen. It's person to person, friend to friend. unknown friend to known friend. We learn things from each other as well, but it's certainly helpful if someone's been there before. I didn't have that. I only had it from books. But in that sense. Ooh, rain. Sorry. Okay. Nothing stops us. Bram says, yeah, it absolutely, quote unquote, works. It's really quite incredible to be able to walk this path for the rest of my life instead of going around in circles following my own ego. Exactly. And, ultimately, it's nothing more than, as I talked about in that recent video I did, the hope springs eternal. It's nothing more than the depth aspect of the church. It's what the church fathers have always talked about. Well, mainly the hesychists, right? The depth aspect, and St. Teresa of Avila and such. St. John of the Cross. It's just become very difficult for people to work out how to do that in this day and age. But, yeah. People making progress, right? It's just putting the time in. It's so hard. I know it's hard to begin with, to trust in putting that time in. But look, the saints all say this. It's not like it's me. I mean, you guys know that, I know. But anyway, I'm going to keep spurring. Can you not watch with me for an hour? And, okay, let's read a bit more of this. And then I guess when we hit another 30 minutes, we'll get up, go for a little bit of a walk. Maybe I'll walk a bit going back. Yeah, we'll go for about 30 more minutes. All right. This process of thought formation now constitutes an enhancement of human self-knowledge, Steiner says. I don't know if you can see me there. Can you see? I guess it doesn't really matter, right? Oh yeah, you can see me. It's kind of moody, isn't it? Viewed supersensibly or transcendently, it looks like this: the spiritual powers, which we this articulation speaks to what it looks like transcendently. The spiritual powers, which we may designate as Michael, govern the ideas in the spiritual cosmos. Man, which makes sense for him being the arch-strategist. Man experienced these ideas in that his soul participated in the Michael world. This experiencing has now become his own. Man experienced these ideas in that his soul participated in the Michael world. Okay, maybe informally. This experiencing has now become his own. I see. Yes, that's what he's saying. Remember how I said earlier the medieval period, church fathers and going back, they got this. They understood what it was to experience the angel thinking into them. We now think it's our own, is what Steiner's saying. A temporary separation from the Michael world has therewith occurred. This is what this subjectness is, right? This, where we come up with the ideas. This is all wrong. Or it's been made wrong and now presence is that way, right? So we're going back. Christ is actually bringing us back into this proper mode of getting until we actually see it. And so that's what initiation is anyway. And so when the inspiration ended, he became dependent upon the senses in order to have content for his thoughts. Do you see what's happened here, friends? We used to have content from Michael and the Angeloi. We even accepted it came from them. Now, what did I say about content before? It's like the grasped, energized being that comes with the concept. then concept became empty, crystallized. No content, no push, no inspirative, no feeling or will with them. Then we began to think that they're our own, and we just move them around in metaphysical jugglery. We don't actually experience the ground of metaphysics. Some people experienced a bit of it, like Goethe did, but he didn't experience intuition and emanation. Didn't experience the uncreated, didn't experience the Lord, but he did see the archetypes of trees, the spiritual content of nature in plant form, not animal. And so, well, what's happened? We now fill ourselves with a content of only the sense world, the surface material physicality. There was this whole other content from a deeper level, from the Angeloi. Even when you weren't that purified, did people in the medieval age, Joan of Arc didn't do anything. That was more of an age where an angel could guide you directly. Now it's really up to us to reconnect with Christ. Then he'll guide and directly us, right? But before, it was a bit less, there was still more mission without, there's sort of less freedom then, in the sense that with certain figures like her, anyway. That's what Steiner thinks. I think that's probably right about her. That won't ever happen again. You're not going to ever have another Joan of Arc. That time's over. It only can happen through a St. John of the Cross, a St. Teresa of Avila. You have to do the work on your side and freely come into union. Then it happens. It's not just a St. Paul, right? That was for a particular mission that had to happen to St. Paul. We needed someone, or we, Christ, well, I'd guess that he needed someone who knew the law back to front of the old covenant so he could show, among other things, and so he completely converted him in that experience of Damascus. He initiated him straight away. There was no purification, illumination, slow, it was an instant thing, like almost like Lazarus, right? So it was a 3-day thing. Well, I don't know how long it went, but the Lazarus, it's like the archetype of the initiation of Lazarus in terms of sick, sleeping, dead, not a long period of time, like 3 days, is that. But that doesn't happen for us. It's a long period of time. It's got to be earned. Listen to those beautiful kookaburras. We love them. Okay, let's continue. I never really get through much, do I? I read this. That's all right. Okay, so man experienced these ideas in that his soul participated in the micro world before. This experiencing has now become his own, quote unquote, I'm going to say, a temporary separation from the micro world, or a sort of enlivened thought world, has therewith occurred. Previously, by means of inspired thoughts, man received at the same time the spiritual cosmic content. When this inspiration ended, he became dependent upon the senses in order to have the content for his thoughts. Content, the thing that gives it whatever its luster, it all comes from the surface world, and everything else is abstracted for many people. Even their religion becomes abstracted as a sort of propositionalized religious experience, and there's no concrete. Remember we were talking about concrete earlier? Concrete, mystic, and true theos, or this true divine or transcendent life. We all need to have this as a goal, purification, illumination, union. No, it's not just talked about as this, St. Paul's experience is a rarity, guys. Look, we're called to do this. It doesn't take that long. If we can find a way to get that hour in. I'm a nobody. I'm nothing. You know? And isn't that the beauty of it? Christ makes use of nothing and nobody. Oops. And so he fell, therefore the content spirituality had obtained. Therefore the content of the spirituality he had obtained had to be suffused with materialism. He fell into the materialistic viewpoint at a time when his own spiritual being advanced to a higher stage than the previous one. So there's certain elements of freedom also increased, but he got filled with a Satanistic being. That's kind of part. Materialism is being exchanged for a Luciferic spirituality. We saw that with so that kind of materialist age, that sort of lesser Kali Yuga is also over too. Obviously Kali Yuga was ended with Christ's incarnation, like I said earlier, but even this spiraling lower pattern of the lower waters of this memory of the Luciferic original Lucifer Gnosis after the fall, those patterns, even that's also ended. So people who think we're in Kali Yuga, no. You can see in how people are acting in the New Age stuff, in Eastern practice everywhere, and Luciferic spiritual experience, charismatic movement. There is a push that's not materialistic, and so the height of that is sort of fading. But the danger is the fake, the return of, actually ends up in a lower blood, a lower kind of blood spirituality where it's not ultimate truth, but it also ends up with kind of what Dugan's talking about, like everyone has a separate truth and a separate spiritual experience. And an unhealthy imprisonment with a sort of blood god, an obsession with the blood. That's one aspect that is growing and will grow. This is easily misunderstood. One can consider only the fall into materialism and rue it. But whereas perception during this age had to be limited to the external physical world, within the soul, a purified, self-sustaining spirituality developed as experience. So he's suggesting that this had to happen in a sense so a proper purification could occur. This is easily misunderstood. One can consider only the fall into materialism and rue it, but whereas perception during this age had to be limited to the external physical world. Whereas perception had to be limited to the physical world, within the soul, though, a purified, self-subsisting spirituality developed as experience. Okay, so perception had to be limited to that, but a soul experience, self-subsisting, did develop. In the Michael Age, the experience no longer needs to be unconscious. So he's saying this happened unconsciously. There's been a slow awakening, is what he's suggesting. Unconsciously, a development. That's probably true, but can become conscious of its nature. Yeah, Christ, things are happening. Christ does things, whilst not breaching people's freedom. This means the entrance into the human soul of the Michael essence. During a certain time, man filled his spirit with the material content of nature. He should now fill it again with the cosmic content of his original spirituality. Well, that which really means his original means grounding, primal essence of things, where he connects to the object. What do we do here? Let's pull this in a little bit. Put this here. Yes. Little shelter. I don't mind doing it. I don't mind doing it, friends. Happy to do it. Okay, let's just pull this in a little bit so it doesn't get wet. Oh, where were we? Don't know where we were. I guess we were on the next page, were we? I think we're here. Okay. Okay. You have a bit of a view there. Not much though. Okay. We were... a little bug. Ew. It was only the separation from... Okay. Oh good, here we are. Yeah, original spirituality, the cosmic content of his original spirituality, his original ground. Now Christ has come, that ground is him, right? He's always been available since he incarnated. Thinking lost itself for a while in the materiality of the cosmos, of that first cosmos, of that which still is being converted. Now Christ has come to the cosmos of love from the cosmos of wisdom. Which is what you can see as Michael's coming as well, right? It's like as well, being involved in it. It's Christ coming, but anyway. It must find itself again in the cosmic spirit, warmth, being filled spirit reality, as a compound word. Being filled spirit reality. Reality, spirit, being filled. Or the being filledness of spirit reality, I think. When they translate the German it has compound words so I'd say that probably is like a being filledness of spiritual reality. Can enter into the cold, abstract thought world. This characterizes the dawn of the Michael Age. Not so sure that there's some new age, honestly. But I think, Michael has missions. I don't know if it's some new age though. Because you'd have to really discern whether you could probably see some of that in the pattern of a move out of materialism. But yeah, I don't know about that. But I do think that needs to happen, and happens through Christ. So it was only by separation from the universal thing. And look, these angels do things. I don't know if there's some new age. I don't know about that. A Michael age. It was only by separation from the universal thinking essence that consciousness of freedom could develop in the depths of human soul. What came from the heights had to be rediscovered in the depths. Therefore, the development of this consciousness of freedom was orientated only to knowledge of external nature. While man, and that's kind of true, as we become more free or abstracted, what do we mean by free? Not pushed by impulses as much, but then again, we're still possessed in another way. It's sort of an illusory freedom in many ways. So we're only truly free in Christ. What came from the heights had to be rediscovered in the depths. Therefore, the development of consciousness, freedom, I just read that, sorry. While man was unconsciously learning to mold purity of ideas with his spirit, his senses were directed outward towards the material world, which in no way affected the tender seed that was germinating in his soul, which he's saying this seed was germinating for this age which he believes is dawning after the First World War. But in perceiving the exterior material world, experiencing the spirit, and therewith spiritual seeing, can be introduced in a new way. What has been learned about nature under the sign of materialism can be spiritually grasped by the inner life of the soul. Michael, who spoke from above, quote unquote, can be heard, quote unquote, from within. Yes, that's true. I mean, personally, I've only ever directed prayer. I pray to Michael. Sorry, I venerate Michael and ask him to pray to the Lord for me. That's as much as I do. Mary and the Lord, right? But you do need to accept and know that angels and saints are constantly helping you, and appeal to them for help. But I've never had, or maybe I haven't had and known it. I think the Lord, like I've only ever asked questions of the Lord. But that doesn't mean there's other, like co-mediatrix is true. His subordinate Angeloi and Mary, if he's saying something to you, are all collaborating in descending. They're all subordinated to him with his permission, right? It just depends on how deep one's union is. But it's always, if an angel is saying something, it's always with the Lord's. It's the Lord's will for it to happen, as happens in the Old Testament. Anyway, I'm just saying that I think you could, but I've always just wanted to. You do have to accept there are archangels. If you don't understand there's a hierarchy, saints and the church triumphant and the angels, you'll end up worshipping them, thinking that you're worshipping Christ and not moving towards the deeper union with him. By not accepting them, you end up worshipping your angel instead. And this is when you see people, some people of Protestantism, they're sort of just talking to their higher self when they're just, without doing much discernment. Steiner actually makes that point, that if you don't acknowledge the angeloi, the angels, that you end up worshipping them as an idol by accident, by not taking them into account. There's a reason why it's the tradition, but personally, I don't ask them any questions or anything. I stick to addressing the Lord. And that's always what I've been guided to do when I've, in a limited fashion, asked about who I should address when asking questions. Anyway, that's a long story. Let's not get into spiritual experience. Got to be moderate in how one talks about these things. Anyway. Always with careful epistemic principle, always checking. Go to my lecture on how to discern the Holy Spirit. Guys, I'm going to just mention it every time, because people can get there, oh no, my pants are getting wet. Oops. What do you do, eh? Well. Okay, let's just finish the reading. Let's finish this reading. I want to get this part of the reading done. Yeah, from within, that's true. From above to within. Because we still experience things as they are as well. In that, in the full sobriety of our experience. And so, where he will now take up residence. Interesting. Speaking imaginatively, this can be expressed thus: the sun quality, which man for a long time only received from the cosmos, will shine from within the soul. He will learn to speak of the inner sun, an inner sun. In life between birth and death, he will, of course, be no less an earth being, which is sort of what I was just saying then. You're not fleeing the body. It's not a prison. It's been sanctified and deified by God. But he will recognize his developing being as guided by the sun. And he means sun as in the center of the spirit, the sun at midnight. He will feel as truth that an essence shines a light on him from within, but one which is not kindled there. That's right. That's what we talk about, right? It becomes an object, but it's within, but we know it's not some subjective thing. That just becomes clear from how it's experienced. At the dawn of the Michael Age, it may still seem as though all this is far beyond humanity. However, it is near. In the spirit, it must only be seen. I would say felt, because ultimately the truth of the heart and spiritual touch, the unseen, is more essential. But immeasurably, much depends upon this fact that man's ideas are not merely thought, quote unquote, but also is seen. I would add to that, felt. During the present cosmic era, man experiences himself in waking consciousness. This experiencing conceals from him the presence of the third hierarchy within his wakefulness. Yeah. But in full waking consciousness, the Lord purifies us so we can experience him. That's what I'm saying. But in dream consciousness, man experiences his own being united with the spiritual essence of the universe in a chaotic way. If imagination is placed as the other pole to this dream consciousness, man would realize that the second hierarchy is present in his experience. Interesting. Just going to say interesting there. I'm not going to say I necessarily agree. In the consciousness of his dreamless sleep, man experiences his own being united with the spiritual essence of the universe, but without his conscious knowledge. That's true. Like, when you're in something like an REM sleep, you are experiencing the third hierarchy, but you're completely unconscious. What's going to happen? REM is just some stupid materialistic term for the utter depth of sleep. The rejuvenating forces that are granted to you in that type of sleep are... you can experience up front, consciously, and then recognize it's actually the spirit that provides those things. I've got to pick up this bag because there's probably water flowing into it. Hang on a minute. Oh, all good. Oh. It's all working. This is an outside broadcast. This is how it is. Prepared for anything. But how good is it? We're still live, guys, in the deluge. Loving it. We're still there. Oh, a bit of water got on the lens. Doesn't look too bad though. Looks okay. I think. Yeah, it looks alright. For now. That'll do. There. Put you guys here. Oh wait, hang on. Let's do this for a moment. All right. Getting soaked was all part of the plan. My shoes aren't even that wet yet. They will be soon enough. Oh, here we are, friends. This is the life. What's the quickest way out of here? Oops. Not sure, really. All right. Let's look for a way out of here. What's the quickest way out? All right. I'm probably going to turn the stream off soon, but I might as well leave it on for a little while. Some people like watching a bit of rain. Look over here. All right, we're just going to start walking. Hopefully you don't mind just watching. I mean, I'm sure I can start ranting about something as we walk, but continuing on our talk on the passion. So let me get my bearings first. Okay. Oops. Should be moody. One good thing about this camera is it's pretty good on low light. All right. And so where do we leave off? We left off at, we were talking about the scouring. The left hand must not know what the right hand's doing. The left hand is Lucifer. A Luciferic knowing is an egoistic antipathy and sympathy, wounding. We can't have that knowing, existing in a calculative mode with the doing, right? The right hand does, which means it's the will in the world. That's Satan, tied up with the worldly wants, which means worldly will, action, doing. A knowing must not be connected with the doing. It's only us that's the knowing connected with the Lord and the transcendent. Standing in sobriety as upright Christians, being peacemakers when we're attacked, both in temptation of the worldly and the satanic and the hypnotic objective, and subjectively of our wanting of revenge, of our wounding when people attack us, of desires for that sort of thing, and not being like a pendulum pushed between those two things and those attacks of us. Instead, the impulses we listen to are this above and below, which has been established from the foot washing. So the scouring doesn't make us, the scouring, we're trying to build a space for Christ through our silence and our hesychism. This is the true knowing space. We're not allowing this left-hand path space of Luciferic calculation to be possessed by the right hand in the doing. So the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Left hand, the knowing, is not connected to the right hand doing. We are the knowing space. We are the connected to the above, not the left and right. This is what we were saying, right? The scouring is about the left and the right, the worldly, subjective and objective. You face that in the morning, every morning in your concentration without effort practice are temptations to stop. Demons try anything. Any impulse, any desire, any thought is to be rejected while you're in this special sacred time. Doesn't matter if it's insightful, doesn't matter if it's, even if it's true, you can think about it later, even if it happens to be the Lord. He knows what you're trying to do though, so rarely it would be him. And it wouldn't matter anyway. You can ask about that after. So that's a scouring happens every morning in the sense that you get rejecting those temptations is also the practice. Rejecting that scouring is also the practice. As we know from the temptations in the wilderness, angels visited upon him after he rejects them. Part of the silence and the peace that's granted is after from the Lord and his angeloi after you. It's an opportunity to face the temptation and reject it, as well as a concentration without effort in prayer. It's an opportunity to do that. So the air around you changes and is transformed. So the air around you is changed and transformed, so the angeloi and the Lord approach. Because at the moment it's tied up with the will to power, the things in sin that pollute you. That sort of, you can think about that like it stops them approaching. And so that over time you'll find that scouring of the left and the right. Look, you'll notice as the more you do the practice, you're consistently doing it, things in the world will interfere. Try to interfere. Scouring will happen in destiny, out in the world. You know, conflicts that you started to withdraw from because you're becoming a peacemaker, some of these old relationships might, you know, the provokings and demons that they get wrapped up in, notice the change and then they lash out at you or try something to tempt you objectively in the world. Or even you might even notice, right, the more you're going to Christ and the essence of things, insane people that are truly like schizophrenic, these are demonic illnesses, right? Those people, for some reason, you'll find they notice that some transformation has occurred. You know, you just become a bit of a magnet for that. They can, you know, just little things. It's like the demon in them knows. You're just things you'll notice out in the world that weren't happening before. You know, but they can't harm you. Christ conquers all demons, exorcises all demons. Ultimately, they can only tempt you unless it's you know, someone. Well, always be cautious in the world, right? There are murderers out there, all sorts of things. But the Lord will protect you as well. So, but don't be foolish either, especially before you can actually learn to discern and follow divine will. But you should certainly. Don't be foolhardy in the sense of almost like jumping off the pinnacle of the temple to prove, you know. We don't want to do that. Okay, here we are. Top of the hill. There's a bit of the harbour in the distance as the twilight gathers. And getting close to our bus. And that's the scouring. And then, like we talked about, the crowning of thorns is after that. And it's about this dealing with shame and fear. And once shame and fear, we begin to become, we conquer fear through devotion to the Lord, through reverence and bowing ourselves. We conquer shame through asking for forgiveness for our sins and forgiving others, asking the Lord to bless others. And so this leads to the crowning of thorns of authentic spiritual experience. We face the scouring. We're facing to the crowning of thorns. And that's why it's called a crowning of thorns, friends. You know, this is not, is a responsibility to help others. You will also be attacked. If you're trying to help people, you will be attacked. Out in destiny, out in the world. And that only becomes more complex as you try to help more people. But that's what the scouring is about. That's what the crowning of thorns is about. Like, you think you wanted to just enjoy spiritual experience. It's not about that. It's about the truth and helping others find the truth. Ultimately, yes, it's the meaning of life and the most rewarding thing. It's the greatest joy and greatest sorrow. But the greatest life, it's the synthesis of life and death. It's true spiritual experience. But like I said, it's a crown of thorns. You have responsibilities then. It's not just for you, it's to help others, to love, bring love into the world, right? So that's why it's a crown of thorns. It's not something that puffs you up. It's a life of service to the divine. Again, there's nothing more greater than that. And the love and joy and the depth of sorrow and meaning and the essence of things and the miraculous and the consolation and the peace and the dissolving of provokings, the meaning of life, the being of life, the essence of life. That is who we come to know. That is what's possible. But that is, like I said, a responsibility for what we do. And with that, my friends, I'm going to say our goodbyes as we are here in Mossman in Sydney. I'll see you next week for another live stream and soon a lecture on the resurrection and truly the difference and the true change in the cosmos that occurred with Christ and the complete difference of that from any pre-incarnation cosmos and religion. I'll just check the chats and then we'll switch off the stream. Sorry, it only went for 4 hours tonight. We did start a bit late and it is very rainy, so, and my camera's getting water on it. We have to bring it to a close. Where are we here? All right, friends. Hopefully that's still coming. Yeah, it looks like it's coming through. All right, everybody. I'll see you next time. God bless you. Dear. Fix this.